in English, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Namaste. Welcome everybody to another Joy Academy webinar on investment and tax advantage retirement planning. I would like to seriously thank all of our Joy Academy organizers for supporting us. I would now like to welcome our super supportive philanthropist, Mr. Raman Bhai Rama from Orlando, Florida, to welcome everyone.
Good morning, everyone. The purpose behind this session was that we, during COVID times, face financial crisis, and we don't have enough cash to buy assets. But at the same time, we have cash available to us where the banks are not giving us enough interest rate. So how do we utilize this cash that we have on to invest it properly to get a higher return on our investment? So Dhilan Bhai Shah is a chartered accountant. He practices in United States. He's familiar with all the methods of investing and getting higher returns from the cash we have. This session is also going to cover what people in the middle age between 35 and 55 can do for their future retirement planning. At the same time, people who are 65 and above, what they can do to get a fixed income out of their savings or retirement funds, because Social Security is not going to be enough for us to sustain our daily livelihoods, and our standard of living are currently different than what it will be in the future. And we cannot predict the future, and that is also going to be covered in here. We have some portion of the session that will cover estate planning. When we leave behind properties and assets for our children after we pass away, they have to pay estate taxes. And those taxes can be up to 50% of what they leave behind. So how do we plan now for that cash to be available to that generation, so that from that cash that they get after we pass away can be used to pay those estate taxes? And without me taking much time, I am going to pass on the stage to Bhaskar Bhai Sureja, who will introduce today's speaker. And thank you for joining us. And I hope that you will get maximum benefit out of this session.
Thank you, Raman Bhai. I think our flyer says we are going to today English and Gujarati. So I request Dhilan Bhai, કારણ કે Dhilan Bhai નું ગુજરાતી થોડુંક ઓછું છે ને ઘણા સાંભળતા હશે એનું ઇંગ્લિશ ઓછું હશે તો ભેગું હશે તો મને લાગે થશે અને આપણે ફ્લાયરમાં લખ્યું છે. એનીવે સૌને વેલકમ. અને આજે આપણો જે વેબિનાર છે એ બહુ મહત્વની વાત ઉપરનો વેબિનાર છે. કે આપણે અમેરિકામાં રહી છીએ, મોટાભાગે તો અમેરિકાને કવર થાય એવી જ વસ્તુ છે. અને આના માટે થઈને ઘણાને અમેરિકામાં રહેતા હોય આપણે મૂંઝવણ થતી હોય છે. ઘણીવાર કમાતા હોય પણ પછી લેક ઓફ ટાઈમ અને લેક ઓફ નોલેજની હિસાબે આપણે પ્લાનિંગ નથી કરી શકતા. આજે ધીલનભાઈ શાહને પહેલા તો હું આભાર માની લઉં છું એડવાન્સમાં કે એના આટલા બધા બીજી સ્કેડ્યુલમાંથી આપણે એને એડવાઇસ માટે લઈ આવ્યા છીએ. આપણે જે ડાક્ટરોના વેબિનાર કરતા તો આપણે જોયું કે ભાઈ 2 કલાક સુધી ડાક્ટરો આપને સલાહ આપે, પણ એ જ વસ્તુ જો એના દર્દી થઈને પૈસા દઈને જાય તો આટલો સમય આપણી પાસે નથી રહેતા. એટલે આવી રીતે આ ધીલનભાઈનું એવું જ છે. એટલે ધીલનભાઈ શાહનો પરિચય આપું તો એ બોમ્બેમાં CA કરેલું, પછી અમેરિકામાં વસવાટ માટે આવ્યા, અહીંયા એને CPA કર્યું અને સામાજિક પ્રવૃત્તિમાં પણ એટલા બધા ઇન્વોલ્વ રહીએ છીએ કોમ્યુનિટી સર્વિસમાં. એ અમારા અહીંયા ઇન્ડિયન એસોસિએશન છે કર્ણાટકમાં, જે મોટું છે. ટૂંકમાં પરિચય આપીશ, આમ તો ધીલનભાઈનો પરિચય આપું તો એમાં ટાઈમ જાય. તો એમના પણ વાઇસ પ્રેસિડેન્ટ છે. અને આ અમારું એસોસિએશન એવું છે કે અમે 15મી ઓગસ્ટે અમારા કેપિટલ બિલ્ડિંગ ઉપર અમેરિકાનો ઝંડો નીચે ઉતારી અને ભારતનો ઝંડો ફરકાવીએ છીએ. આ કદાચ તમને કોઈને ખ્યાલ ના હોય તો કહું. એના ટાઉનની જે જોનિંગ બોર્ડ ઓફ અપીલ કમિટી હોય છે, જે એમાં એ ઇલેક્ટેડ મેમ્બર છે. રોકી હિલના ચેમ્બર ઓફ કોમર્સમાં ડિરેક્ટર છે. અને સંગીતની બાબતમાં હું ન ભૂલતો હોઉં તો ધીલનભાઈ, તમે અને તૃપ્તિબેન ખૂબ સારી રીતે ગાય છે, ખૂબ સારી રીતે ગાય છે. ધાર્મિક ગીતો અમે બહુ સારા સાંભળ્યા છે. એમને 2 સન છે, 2 જોડિયા છે અને 2 મેડિકલ સ્કૂલમાં છે. અને એમના પિતાશ્રી નરેશભાઈ શાહ 1950માં લંડનથી બેરિસ્ટર થયેલા છે. અને એમના માતુશ્રી અરવિંદાબેન શાહ, one of the first women, the bankers in India. 35 વર્ષ બેંક ઓફ બરોડા સાથે એને બોમ્બેમાં કામ કર્યું છે. એટલે આખું ફેમિલી ફાઇનાન્સમાં, સોશિયલમાં અને સંગીતમાં પણ, એટલે બધી કોમ્યુનિટીમાં અને બધી ઇન્ટરેસ્ટવાળી રસમાં ધરાવે છે. એટલે સૌથી પહેલા આભાર તમારો ફરીથી માનું છું. અને આપણે કાર્યક્રમ દર્શન ટેક ઓવર.
Yes, Dhilan bhai, please proceed.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, Bhaskar bhai. And so really thankful to the Committee of Joy Academy for giving me this opportunity to speak to everyone. And really thankful for this opportunity. And I'm going to share some information. I was in a corporate job for about 20-25 years. But I'm very passionate about sharing financial instruments and all that's available for finance to everyone. That is part of the reason I became a financial planner. And I've been in this business for a few years now. Really feel very passionate and I want to share everything I know, and that's just who I am. So I'm going to begin with this. So I'm going to start with this investments, planning, and all the subjects. But let's begin with my first slide here. So everybody knows about inflation. So inflation is the increase.
Dhilan bhai, can I interject for a second? I want the audience and participants to know that these are just advices and that you have to check with your financial planner and tax consultants to take appropriate steps, what is good for you. So Dhilan bhai, I would like for you to reiterate that
yes,
nobody can rely on the information and they have to verify themselves.
Yes. So again, I think thank you very much, Raman bhai, for this reminder. And we do have a disclaimer going down, but I do want to reiterate, like he said, this is purely an informational and educational seminar. There is nothing that you should not be basing any decisions based on what we discussed today. You need to approach your financial advisor as well as your tax advisor. There will be a lot of things we're going to talk about, but it's all purely informational and general purposes. So to begin again, the inflation is at about 3.57%, and that's showed here. What we do is, so we have savings account. When we have savings account, it is good to have savings account for emergency fund. But if you have it for more than that, you are basically depreciating the value of your money. That's what inflation does to the money that you have. A lot of times, so what are the options? And so one of the options that you have when you have an investment is either to invest in businesses, but the other option is also to invest in financial markets. When it comes to financial markets, there is a wide variety of opportunities available. One of the biggest one that helps you keep up or stay ahead of inflation is stock market. However, the stock market fluctuates every year, every day. And so when it's fluctuating, it's hard to pinpoint how you can make money greater than inflation. I'm showing a slide here, and this slide is showing you the graph of how the stock market has gone. Any individual looking at this slide will say somewhere, and if you can see the ups and downs, somewhere around 2013, any layman would start thinking that this is going to start going down. And that's just a trend line. But it didn't. What am I trying to say with this? I'm trying to say it's very, very difficult to predict. Frankly, I have people now saying that it's going to go down anytime. It's very hard to pinpoint when a stock market will go down or not. What we do know as a fact is that it does grow over a period of 20, 30 years. But what happens day to day is different. Here is some example of how the stock market has done over the past 20 years from 1999. We have S&P growing at 5.6%, if you can see the green block in the middle. These portfolios are a blend of stocks and bonds, and I'm going to talk about that later. But if you can look at this and say inflation was around 2.2 for this particular period, but the average investor made only 1.9. Average investor makes way less than even inflation. So he's taking all the risk of the market, making less money. Any suggestions why? Any answers? The biggest one is everybody's trying to time the market. Timing the market can be one of the biggest hurdles that an average investor faces. The average investor would sell and buy based on sentiments and emotions. And a lot of times you can go down trying to do that. Here's another example of what can happen. These are the highs and the lows of every year. And I'm just going to pick one example, somewhere around 1998. During the year, the market was down 19%. It saw one of the bigger swings in the market. The market did end up being up by 27%. So what happens is an average investor, when it's down by 19 percentage points, could panic and sell. And that would be the worst time to sell. So this is where a financial advisor comes into the picture who keeps you disciplined, because you are in this for 20, 30 years and not day to day making money. This slide I threw in a little bit later. I'm trying to address the COVID scare. We have some data that shows that right after the COVID, right after any widespread epidemic, what has happened. So if you can see, we have pinpointed HIV, AIDS, pneumonic plague, SARS. Every time a plague has come to general information, general knowledge, what's happened to the market. So the largest drawdown from peak in the first 6 months has been, as you can see, minus 15% during HIV, minus 6%. This may not just be because of the epidemics, it could be other factors, but this just tells you a story that there is a little bit of panic in the first 6 months or 6 month period somewhere. But what happens over a longer term? And as you can see here, 12-month change, except for one. Everywhere else you can see that the market has grown, except for a couple of them, the missiles and the HIV. So what I'm trying to say here is that timing the market or panicking with the market is not going to be productive. I also wanted to address the elections. So with the elections, as you know, I have been here about 25 years. And during my 25 years, every election, both sides of the political party say, this is the most important election of your life. They will also say that this is the most vitriolic election of your life. Sauthi vadhare ama je bad feelings avi thi, so that's the maximum. Well, just to remind you that whatever we are facing now between the current two presidential candidates or anything in the past is nothing compared to the worst case scenario. And I just want to go back a little bit in history and show you the worst case scenario. This was somewhere in 1804 with the screen that you see on the left side. What had happened is Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton got into so much vitriolic fight that they actually took out their pistols and came out in the open and shot each other. So if you think this is vitriolic, what we are facing now, well, there's something worse that's happened before. I believe Alexander Hamilton died with this, and Aaron Burr, even though was initially captured, he was freed up. But just giving you an example of what election can do. On the right side, what I'm trying to show is a growth. If you had invested $10,000 in the market and you had been politically active saying, I will only stay invested during the Republican time, and if a Democrat wins, I'm going to sell the stock and then go back in, or I will only invest during the Democrat time, this is what had happened. The results would be, as you can see, you would have made very less money. If you had stayed election blind and invested, this is where you would be. We have so quite a few things that I've shared here are slides that are available outside, which are the previous ones, and these ones are 2020 election slides. So if you need any information or you want to go into more detail, I'll be happy to share. Again, all I'm showing is to make sure that you know that this is purely for informational purposes. So please do not take any information here and make active decisions. You do need to involve your financial advisor while you're working on anything related to your money. What I'm trying to do is spread as much information as possible. This is one of my favorite subjects. This talks about the buckets of money. What we have on the left is a bank. So we have different buckets of money that you can put your money in. It's never advisable to put all eggs in one basket, as they say, or all the money in one bucket. I have showed 5 buckets. First one is the bank, which is you need enough for your emergency fund. This is referring back to the first slide of inflation. You need enough in the emergency fund where sometimes they say it could be 6 months to 1 year of your expenses that's preserved for any emergency. The second bucket is the most common among most common among people, and that is the stock, bond, ETF, mutual funds. These are not guaranteed. These are 100% liquid, but if the market goes down, you might have to take a loss if you need any withdrawals. So that's the stock bond. The next 3 buckets are something like something called structured products. These are available only through financial advisor. And once again, when you make any decisions, please take advice from your financial advisor. But I'm going to give you a little glimpse on what these 3 buckets are. Primarily, I'm going to talk about the middle 3 in the next few slides. So talking about stocks and bonds, you can invest this yourself or you can invest it with a financial advisor. Sometimes I like to show what we as at my company do with investments. And we have an investment management group. And what we do is we always constantly compare ourselves with the benchmark. And as you can see here, the teal color is the benchmark of an 80-20 investment, whereas the green is the performance of a particular investment group. And as you can see, it's consistently better. That is not to say that this will happen in the future as well. But when you are investing with a company, you want to see how their past performance has been. Another thing most good advisor would take care of is the drawdown. When the market is down, how quickly can it recover with the investments you have? So some good investment advisor and a good team behind the advisor would have things in place that takes care of the bad times more. I have a good example here, which is the benchmark. When it was down, it took 6 months to recover, but a good investment would take only 3 months. You also hear from a lot of people that they are invested very well. they have the investments in the right place. They look at their returns and they're happy with their returns. Sometimes when they give me the return or they give a financial advisor their statement, the financial advisor can run it through an independent agency like Morningstar and show them what the performance has been of that particular investment. In this case, I'm just trying to show one example of somebody's investment, and look how he has done compared to the benchmark. So the red line is the portfolio of this person, and the benchmark was much higher. So when any investment in that type of an investment mix went up by 11.73%, the portfolio of this particular individual went up only 7.59. These things can only be tracked through a professional agency like a Morningstar or a reporting agency. Otherwise, most people think or believe that they are doing very well. And that's where the advisor, financial advisors, professional advice comes into picture. Again, any decisions you make here need to be discussed with your financial advisor. What I'm trying to do is show you some graphs and charts so you get familiar with how to look at your own investments. The next one on my right, the header says risk analysis. Similar scenario. We have a benchmark which has a certain standard deviation and a certain risk, whereas the person's investment, which is showed in this red color portfolio, is actually he's making less, he's growing less, and he's expected to grow less, but is going to have more deviations. To give you an example, if you have $100 and the market went up 5%, this kind of investment would go anywhere from 2% to 6%. A good portfolio would go anywhere between 4 and 6. And that's, again, showing you how the portfolio could be underperforming compared to the benchmark, which a lot of people are not aware of. And that's where the running of the report becomes essential. Again, I'm trying to show you how the benchmark is with the 4 blue color, teal color squares and where the person's portfolio is. A lot of people will ask me which stocks to buy. Again, this is not a subject that's covered by a financial advisor. So I'm going to address it just to give you an honest advice on how it should be done. When it comes to individual stocks, you have hundreds of qualified financial analysts observing companies as their full-time profession. So when people tell you Apple lay low, Tesla lay low, buy Tesla stock or buy Apple stocks, they are not taking the whole picture into the account. There are people who are looking at this on a full-time basis and trying to make sure they are making the best investment for their clients. And here, if you come in with just a little bit of knowledge and trying to play, it can be a good hobby. But if you make this your full-time, or you can make it your full-time profession. But other than that, you're always taking a big risk. You're competing with financial analysts with the limited time and knowledge. Once I became a financial advisor, even I personally do not pick stocks myself, because I have realized that there is a whole team of professionals that can help me do that better than even I am doing. I'm still going to just expose to you how the stocks work and how they can be analyzed. So people, there are two ways to look at stocks. One is the fundamentals and one is the technicals. The fundamentals have metrics like PE ratio and earnings per share, dividend payment. There are a lot of fundamental things you can look from the balance sheet and the profit and loss account. The other method is called technicals, which looks at trend lines of what's going up and what's going down. Frankly, if you go into any of these, you are entering speculation. And I would say that please take advice from your financial advisor again before getting into stocks or jumping into any of these and trying to time the market. As we saw in the second or third slide, the average investor makes even less than the inflation. And the primary reason is they go in with all this. I also want to share a quick story. I always hear when I'm at a party or a social event, I always hear people saying, I bought this Apple stock and it's double or triple. There, people have that tendency of remembering only the good story. So again, I'm not saying they could be, so there could be three things. Either they are much smarter than all these hundreds of analysts, or they are just plain lucky, or they are not telling you the whole story. I have seen people who have invested in stocks which have gone down, but they only talk about the story that has gone up. There is a little link here which kind of talks about this. I do not kind of recommend it, but if you need to look at it on Google or something, there is how to pick a stock. Again, there are risks involved. You need to talk to your financial advisor before you get into this game. There is also a stock screener. Stock screener is available to all of you in your own IRA accounts. Stock screener is primarily going by the fundamentals. So stock screener is kind of tied to the fundamentals. I'm going to quickly show you how the stock screener works. Here is a sample stock screener. Again, it's my personal stock screener. I do not advise anyone to do any investments based on these methodologies, but what I do have is I look at 5 rating agencies. And as you can see here, the 4 rating agencies you can see right here. The 4 rating agencies are Warren Buffett stocks, Morningstar, Bank of America Global Research, which is also similar to Merrill Edge. They are CFRA. So when all 4 say buy is when I buy. I have seen stocks go down even after all 4 have said. There could be several things. These are institutional buyers. They've already made their purchases and then they are recommending. But by and large, they are a little bit safer way to invest. I still, again, want to emphasize that any investment decisions you make, you need to have your financial advisor consulted. So we talked about the stocks. So out of the 3 buckets that I showed you in the beginning, there was the one bucket that was a plastic bucket, that was the stocks. There is another bucket, the green bucket that I showed you, that is a little more solid. What does that do? It, again, it's you invest in it, and then 6 years later, you can invest in it as an S&P 500, for example. When you invested in this as an S&P 500, what it does is 6 years later, they look at where the S&P is. So for example, you put $1,000, $100,000 today. S&P index is 3,300. So if the index is 3,300 and the index goes up to say 6,600, what would happen? Your 100,000 would become 200,000. And if you had invested in a product like Bright House Shield, you would get all of that back. If the product went down over the 6-year period, the first 15%, is something that the Bright House will eat the loss. So over a 6-year period, if the market goes up, you get all the benefits up to 225%. That's the capping. If the market goes down by 15%, you get all your money back. If the market goes down more than 15%, you take the rest of your loss. So for example, if you invest 100, market went down 20%, you get 95,000 back instead of 80. So if you had invested the same money in the open market, you would have gotten 80,000 back. Another advantage with a product like this is it comes with the guaranteed principal death protection. What does that mean? In that 6-year period, if the investor dies, the family gets either all the money back, the principal that they invested, 100,000, or if it's gone up, then they get the higher value. But at no point will they get the lower value. So even though you are within the 6-year period, it's almost like breaking the contract. The market's down by 40%. You do not get 60,000 back. You get all your money back if the death occurs with the person who invested. So this is one of the great products that's available in the market, and there are about 20 or 25 different variations, and you can see there are already a couple of variations you see here. You need to have a financial advisor who can give you the right advice on this. Every time I get a question after understanding the whole thing, When I get a question from the client, okay, so how does Bright House make money? That's when I know that they've understood this concept. Again, we can talk about this in detail in future, but at this point, I'm only covering the basics of how these products work. Raman Bhai mentioned about the retirement, and I think that hits the nail on the head, because that's the topic that most people are at this point worried about. Here's a traditional three-legged stool. The three legs of retirement are social security, pension plan, and personal savings. So when a person at 65, 68, whenever they retire, they know they have social security coming. They know they were in a part of a pension plan with a company they worked for 30 years. So now they start getting that. And then they have the personal savings account. What does that do? Two of these legs, the pension plan and the social security, they take care of your living daily expenses. What does personal savings do? If you run short in your daily expenses, then the personal savings can fill in the gaps. The personal savings can also be left behind for your future generations. Personal savings can also be useful for anything over and above your daily expenses, vacations, and whatnot. So this was a traditional three-leg tool. What has happened to this since in the last few years? Most companies have kind of withdrawn from the pension plan they provided. What they have done in turn is either reduced the overall benefit or increased what they contribute towards the 401ks, which is again a part of the savings account. So now we only have social security and personal savings to rely on. Social security by itself may not be enough for your living expenses. So what do you do? So one of the methods to kind of fill in this big gap that you see with the pension that's no longer there is to create your own little pension plan. And I'm going to talk about this in the next slide. As we go further, there is also a fear of social security not being as dependable. And if that happens, now we need to have something to take care of our living expenses. So if you remember, there was a slide that talked about the three buckets, the three center buckets. One of them was the golden eggs. That's the bucket I'm going to talk about now. What it does is, it is like creating your own social security or pension plan. What does that do? Once you invest a certain money over a period of time or in lump sum, it guarantees you a certain income for the rest of your life as long as you live. So there are three things that are important in retirement. I always say that there are three things that are important in retirement, which are more important than the one that everybody knows. So let me ask, what is the most important thing in retirement? The most important thing most people will tell me is in retirement, Dhilan, is the investments. So when you're 65 and you retire, you say, okay, at 65, I have $2 million, $1.5 million. And that's what makes you happy, that this is my investment pie. I'm going to tell you that there are three things that are more important than this investment pie. So again, for now, let's talk about the guaranteed income, which creates a social security or a pension plan. So it is taking off the longevity risk off the table. What does that mean? It means once you are invested in a guaranteed income, you know the income is coming every month that you live, every month, month over month. When you see some older people in casinos enjoying their money, chances are they have social security, a good pile of social security and a good pile of guaranteed income. because they know that next paycheck is coming. They know the next guaranteed income that they purchase is coming. The guaranteed income is actually also called a guaranteed income annuity. Now, a lot of people will off the bat tell you that annuity is a bad thing. I'm going to tell you that no financial product is good or bad by itself. It's how you use it. Those are all the instruments available to you. Guaranteed income annuity is a type of social security. So do you hate your social security? No. That's what guaranteed income is. It just supplements that. You have several ways you can buy guaranteed income, and this is where you need to have the right advice. You can buy a guaranteed income, you put 100,000 and you get an X number of dollars for the rest of your years. But if the person who bought it passes away, then, and the person wants to make sure the spouse also gets, then you need to buy a product that gives you X number of dollars. But if a death occurs, then the spouse gets Y number of dollars. So it's called a spousal arrangement. So that's very important to have. Another thing you can also choose is whether to have life insurance benefit at the end of this. So those are the factors that need to be considered when buying a product like this. Third important factor when you purchase is whether you want the same amount of money over a period of years, or do you want more money in the beginning years of your retirement, and you wouldn't worry too much if it went down a little bit. So these are a lot of complex products. And why would you do that? The third item. I'm going to say when people retire, they go through 3 phases of retirement. What do we call it? It's very easy to remember if I tell you. First is called 65 to 75. And these are just general ranges. It's not true for everybody, but 65 to 75. It's called the go-go years. You retire and you have a bucket list and you want to take vacations and you want to see places. And you want to do things, you want to learn dancing, you want to learn something else. So those are your go-go years where you're just doing things and you may need more income during the go-go years. 75 to 85, what we call it slow-go years, because now you're slowing down. Once you slow down, you have less expenses. You worry more about just staying healthy. And the third phase of life at retirement is called no-go years. So go-go years, slow-go years, and no-go years. The no-go years are where you could require nursing care. You could require so many other things. Those are the things to consider. Sometimes people will come to me and say the guaranteed income is paying so much less. It pays 5%, 6%. When the stock market is growing at 8 or 10%, why wouldn't I just put it in stock market and make the money? Why do I need to give an annuity company that's going to have a lot of other conditions attached to it, and they're only going to give me somewhere between 4 and 8%. This question comes up very often because from what I know from all the people I work with are always constantly watching the stock market, and the market's done phenomenal in the last 10 to 20 years. This is where I need to explain a little bit in detail the sequence of returns concept. This is one of the most important concepts to understand why an annuity company or why you yourself are not better off taking 8% out of your money every year instead of giving it to an annuity. I ran an example. We have an example here from 1995. This individual retired in 1995. He had done pretty well in life. He had $2 million. He decided to withdraw $150,000 every year. But that's his living expense, and he wanted to enjoy everything that he could. So he said, I'm going to take out $150,000 no matter what happens to the stock market. As you can see, from 1995 to 2009, the market has grown at 10.4% average. So what has he done? He ended up with, even after taking $150,000 every year, starting with $2 million balance, all 100% invested in Standard & Poor, S&P 500. He ended up 2009 with $3.3 million. Excellent. This makes a great case for investing in stock market and not putting it in an annuity, which is guaranteeing you a return. I'm going to show you one more example where all I'm doing is flipping the S&P returns. So the 37.6 that you see in the top is going to be at the bottom. Let's say the growth happened in the reverse order. Here's an example of the growth happening in the reverse order, where 26.5 happened first, 37 happened next, 5.5 happened next, 15.8 after that. What's the average here? The average is still 10.4. And the withdrawal is still 150,000. All I have done is reversed the S&P index occurrences. What happens if he starts taking 150,000 every year, saying, I'm not going to worry about the market? And in a period of 15 years, he sees that the market has done 10.4. When he looks at his own balance, it's 0. What am I trying to say here? For the exact same type of investment, exact same investment in S&P with an average growth of 10.4, this person ended up with $0 had the growth return been reversed. Know that he had no control over the S&P return, so it's very possible it could have happened in the reverse. So when you say 7 or 8%, you could succeed and end up with 3.3 million, or you could not succeed and end up with $0 at the end. So you don't have the last year he could not even withdraw 150,000. He had only 136,000 left. This concept is very important to understand for anyone retiring, the sequence of returns. And this risk is taken by the annuity company. So when you invest 2 million with an annuity company and they promise you 150,000, they are taking the risk that the S&P could go either way. I'm going to touch on different topics. And one of the topics I wanted to touch on is a lot of people have old 401k. When you leave a company, while you are with a company and you are earning a 401k, you're saving a 401k when you're working in a company. You have, when you are there, you have no choice. You are investing in all the plan that they have offered, all the mutual funds and other things. But once you leave the company, you have a few choices. With the old 401k, you could either leave it there with the old company. You can even roll it into a new company with the 401k in the new 401k. So now, for example, I worked in Hartford Insurance, and then I went to Travelers. Say I had 100,000 in Hartford Insurance. I could either take the money and put it into Travelers, and now my Travelers pile of 401k becomes 100. Or I could have left it in Hartford Insurance, or I could have moved it into an IRA and created my own little traditional IRA, my own little bucket of money. This again, you need to do in your own choices and ask your advisor what's best for you. I'm going to point out a few things that make an IRA a good option. With IRA, you can invest in all the products that are available. So you can invest in ETFs, you can invest in direct stocks. So it doesn't open up a lot of investment choices. If you do decide to do this with the help of a financial advisor, independent of your old company, now you are an individual customer to this financial advisor. Whereas when you are with a company, you are an indirect customer. When you call the company, when you call, for example, Fidelity, you are calling as an employee of Hartford Insurance. Hartford Insurance is the main client for that company, and you are just a part of Hartford Insurance plan. When you are directly investing with a financial advisor, you are a direct customer. So when you call and you talk to them, it's one-on-one. Your communication quality, if you pick the right kind of advisor, is much better. Sometimes you may end up with lower fees and costs. A lot of times people don't even know that the fees and costs they are paying at their current company may be higher. I'm going to go back to that Morningstar report I talked about. Sometimes when people give me a statement, we run it through Morningstar and it comes up with how much fees they are paying currently. And sometimes it's much higher than what they thought they were paying. The fourth option you have when you have an IRA is there is no penalty on withdrawal. So even though you do have to pay taxes, there is no penalty on withdrawal for children's college fees. There is a penalty if you do this from a 401k, even if it's an old 401k. As a financial advisor, I do not recommend withdrawing college fees for the kids' education as long as possible, but this option is available. I'll share my personal story here. I have twin boys. They both were in school. I had enough savings which lasted them to 3 years of their education. In the 4th year, we were running out. So I could have either used my savings account or we were in the process of buying a house. What I did do is not something a financial advisor would recommend, but it worked for me very well. I wanted my kids to come out of their undergrad without any loans. Why? Because they both wanted to pursue medical school. And I wanted to help them with that. And I did not want them to feel burdened after 4 years of college that we have to go medical school and we already have a loan. And so I used my IRA money to pay for their college fees in the 4th year. And now they both are in medical school in the 3rd and 4th year respectively. So again, it's not an advisable process, but it can work. The 5th reason is a Roth option. So when you have an old 401k converted to IRA, at some point, you can convert it into a Roth IRA. And I'm going to touch on what Roth IRA and what are the advantages in the coming slides. Next, you have some estate planning advantages. You do have estate planning advantages because how you name your beneficiary, you have more flexibility when it comes to IRA. So again, these are just some of the advantages of converting a 401k into IRA. Everything has their own advantage. You can either keep it there, and that may not be a bad decision either, or you can move it to another 401k. Here, I'm going to talk about 3 different tax avenues. So a lot of people know about the bottom 2. Again, I just want to preface by saying I'm not purporting to give you any tax advice, but it's good to take a look at the tax triangle and see how taxes work. The bottom left is talking about the taxable. So when you don't have a 401k or you don't have an IRA, what do you have? You may have money market account, brokerage account, and that every time it grows each year, you pay tax on it, on the growth. So it is a post-tax money. It is the money that you've already paid taxes on. So that principal amount, the bucket that you have is not taxable, but anything that grows is taxable. A lot of financial advisors would not work with cash, check, CDs, or money market, but they do work with non-qualified brokerage account. The investment I showed you in the beginning can be the one where I showed you some performances. That investment can also be a taxable or a tax-deferred money. But that's what this is. And so I primarily work with the non-qualified brokerage account. Next is the tax-deferred, which is post-tax. What are the examples of pre-tax? I'm sorry, it is pre-tax. The pre-tax money is where if you have an income and you take some money out of it into a 401k or a traditional IRA, that money you did not pay any tax on. A very good common example is the 401k here. 401k, 403b for educational. What happens with that money? You did not pay any tax on the principal, the original bucket, and then it grows. So when you retire and you withdraw money, you are taxed both on the principal as well as the growth. So you're paying taxes on everything at the final stage. There are some very distinct advantages to putting money in a tax-deferred process because since you didn't pay any tax, you have a bigger bucket and that bucket grows. So you have a bigger bucket that grows along with the markets. So that's the tax-deferred. The third, which a lot of people sometimes may or may not know, is the tax-favored. With tax-deferred below, we primarily work with traditional IRAs. And the example I showed you in the beginning, right before this slide, was how we can work with an old 401k transferred into a traditional IRA, which is what this is. Tax-favored. What are the tax-favored instruments? There are 3 instruments here: Roth IRA, municipal bond, and cash value life insurance. Municipal bonds grow at a much lower rate, but they are not tax favored. So any growth in a municipal bond is tax free if you buy the right kind for the right state, because they are federal tax free, the growth, as well as the state is also growth is free. You do not pay any taxes, is what I mean. The next one is the Roth IRA. This is your post-tax money, very similar to the taxable money below. However, because you are committing to put this in a Roth IRA, any growth that happens, if you withdraw after retirement, you do not pay taxes on any of the growth. So this is one of the biggest tax advantages of Roth IRA. There is one more product that a lot of people don't know about or may not have gone into detail, is the cash value of life insurance. When you invest money in a life insurance policy, like a whole life or a variable policy, and I'm going to talk about the life insurance briefly at the end. When you invest in any of these products, like a whole life or a variable, what can happen is when you invest in it, the cash value starts growing. And you can at some point withdraw this cash value. So we even have illustrations which show how you can take benefit of the cash value for your own benefit. You can also withdraw money that has grown. The big condition of it not being taxable is as long as you keep the life insurance policy active, the whole event becomes tax-free. I can give you several examples, but for shortage of time, I'm going to skip that. But those are the two big tax favored in the tax triangle box. Now we are coming to the measures of financial success at retirement. I did prompt this question a little bit earlier also. So when I talk to people who are retiring, what is the biggest thing they think is important at retirement? And the common phrase is the investments I have. What is the biggest financial success, not just regular? And they say how much investment I have. So they look at it as net worth, investment, and retirement account balance. But you know what? There are two questions that are again more important than even your net worth. The first is, did you take all the longevity risk off your table? And are you leaving behind a solid legacy if you do want to? So a typical case is you have, say you have $2 million and you retire. What do you do with that? You keep watching it every year and you take money out as you need, but you're watching it and you worked all your life to work hard and get that $2 million. It will hurt to see it go down any. So even when you withdraw money, it hurts to see it go down to 1.6 million, 1.5 million. So you keep watching it. If it grows, you're happy. If it goes down, you're unhappy. And you end up not spending enough for yourself. What can happen is either the market will go down at some point, you might need an emergency, you might withdraw and it will go down even further, or you might leave a very good legacy behind, but not have spent that money in your retirement. So the two questions that I said are more important. Those two questions lead me into saying that there are three contracts, three different things that are more important than even the net worth that you have. To take care of your longevity risk, what do you need? What if you live to 95? You want to have a guaranteed income coming. And that's what this is, a guaranteed income annuity that I talked about in the beginning. And the second thing you need is, what if you go into a nursing care or you need a home nursing care and you have long-term care needs? If you do not have a long-term care policy, then you might be dipping into your retirement account, which you never really wanted to in the first place. So those are the two big contracts that you need. And if you want to leave behind a legacy, then yeah, you need a life insurance, which will leave behind a legacy for your beneficiary. So I'm going to go back and give you two scenarios. There is one person who has 1.5 million of investment in net worth. He's watching it. He watches it grow. He watches it grow down. He's worried. He doesn't have anything else, any other contracts. All he has is an investment. So if he suddenly needs a long-term care, he might run out. He might live very long and run out. But otherwise, he's not spending anything too much and he's watching it because he wants it to stay. He's worked 65 years to earn that 1.5 million. Now let's take a case of another person. What does this other person do? He takes this 1.5 for 500,000, either on retirement or has done it over a period of time. He buys a life insurance policy of 1.5 million that is forever. So what does that do? He knows that whenever he passes away, the family is going to get $1.5 million. So he's done with taking care of legacy. He takes another 500 and buys a long-term care insurance. And I'm going to go into that detail in the next slide. And he takes another 500 and creates a guaranteed income for himself. So now he has three things. Instead of having a 1.5 million net somewhere that he can watch every day, he knows he's leaving behind 1.5 million. He knows his long-term care is taken care of. And he knows there's a paycheck coming every month from Social Security as well as from the annuity that he bought. So it's a paycheck to paycheck. So now when he's going out and spending money, he knows there's another paycheck coming next month. Now I'm going to touch on the long-term care product, and which is the product number 2 here. So the traditional long-term care used to be very similar to a term policy. You pay every month, you pay $5,000 a year, or 500 per month. You're paying 400, 500 per month, 6,000 a year. And you have that policy, and that policy will cover you for, say, $500,000, $1 million of long-term care should you have any emergency. But in the last few years, they have come up with a new kind of policy and what we call a hybrid. And that hybrid has something called so the top one is called use it or you lose it. So while you have the policy, you either use it or you lose it, because when you stop paying the premium, it's going to be gone. The hybrid policy stays with you forever. And there are 3 elements to this. And what we call it, use it, or use it. And I'm going to show you all 3 uses. Here's a typical example of a hybrid policy, the newer one. The hybrid policy gives you a long-term care benefit pool. So now you invest, say, 100,000, you have 300,000 of long-term care that they're promising you forever, guaranteed. If you never use that 300,000 and say the person passes away, then the family gets 150,000 of life insurance death benefit. But if neither occur and you have an emergency and you need the cash value on a non-guaranteed dividend basis would have grown at about 3%. So it's almost like putting 100,000 in a 3% earning product, but it also gives you long-term care as well as life insurance. So those are the 3 uses. And I'm getting product specific only because I need to give a good example. With Care Choice 1, you invest 90,000 on a guaranteed basis. As soon as this person, and his age is about 55, invests 98, he has 300,000 of long-term care benefit. But if he never needed long-term care benefit and he passes away before the use, then Dan gets 150,000 of his family gets 150,000 of death benefit. However, if neither of them occur, then on a guaranteed basis, he can get his money back in 9 years. I know I talked about the 3% growth, and that's going to come up in a lot of your minds. This is the guaranteed value I'm showing. There is a non-guaranteed value that's connected to the dividend scaling. And that at this point is growing at about 3%. And here's the non-guaranteed portion. So for the same amount he invested, he gets a policy at 73, he gets about 140,000 of policy surrender value. If he turns to be 85 and says, I don't need life insurance and he can get 218. You can also see that the death benefit is increasing. Again, this is on a non-guaranteed basis based on the dividend scaling. And I'm going to show you some of the dividend scaling quickly also, just so you get an idea of how dividend scales work. Here are a lot of people will tell me they don't need long-term care. They are going to stay in their home. Long-term care also includes nursing home, so home care. And here's the expenses of home care. The monthly home care expense is $6,650. The assisted living going into a nursing home is about $3,563. And all these long-term care policies I talked about, they all cover the nursing home as well. Some of them do, and we can go into those details if and when there's an individual case. So again, it's very important to work with your advisor when it comes to buying all these or considering all these products for yourself. I'm going to touch on one more slightly different example. I'm trying to share all these concepts, and this concept has also been very important to me. Let us say you have a same job and you have 3 different offers for the same job. Job A is you get a gross of $103,000. By the time you pay taxes and Social Security and Medicare, it will be take home of 78. Job B says we're going to offer you only 101. So your take home is that much less, 76. But they say if you are on the job and if you get sick or hurt, then as long as you are sick or hurt, you will get $65,000 per year as long as you are in that situation. But then once you're back, you don't get that and you start working. So it is a guarantee that if you get sick, hurt, or even permanently disabled, we're going to pay you 65 for the rest of your life, as long as you are disabled or in that situation. So that's a job B offer. Job C offers you the same thing about getting too sick or hurt, but job C also offers you that if you happen to pass away during the job, your family will get $250,000 of cash benefit that's completely non-taxable. So those are the 3 job offers. Which one will you take? 90% of the time I get the answer is job C, because they don't mind getting 3,000 less, but they want to have a benefit of life insurance and they want to have a disability insurance. That's what these 2 are. Now, I know companies generally do not provide these 2. So what do? So when you're making 103 and you think of the other 3,000 as an investment for disability and life insurance, that's what gets you to the job C situation. But you know what? It's even more than that. You are in that situation, but even if you lose your job, you still have those 2. So that makes it a better choice than even job C. Now I'm going to talk about the life insurance because we haven't discussed this yet. So there are 50, 60 different types of concepts. For everything that I've brought down to 2 or 3 different types or 4 different types, please understand that there are another 10 different types that I'm not covering, because first, they are much smaller percentage of coverages. So I'm going to quickly go through this. There are three main types of life insurance. Whenever I say there are 3 or 4, there are a lot more different variations, but I'm just trying to focus and show you the basic concepts. There is a term life insurance and there's a permanent life insurance. People will often ask me, what is a term insurance or what is a permanent? I always tell them term insurance is like renting an apartment. When you leave the apartment, you do not tell them that, hey, what do I get now that I'm leaving the apartment? You don't get anything. You don't have the coverage anymore. That's what term life is. Permanent life insurance, it's like buying a house. So when you purchase a house, you could have either so it's like you're building cash value, and the death benefit stays forever. And whole life comes with 3 different guarantees. There's a fixed premium, cash value, and death benefit. There is also a dividend element which increases the cash value and death benefit even higher, but that is non-guaranteed. And so it's always important when you invest on a whole life policy to see what the record is of that company in terms of paying dividend and where do you think the future is for that. I'm going to go for another 3 or 5 minutes as we are running out of time. I'm going to show you quickly what the dividend scaling is. That is not to say that the future dividend scaling will be at the same level, but as you can see, so Mass Mutual has about 6.4%. New York Life is about 6%. They all have different dividends and they all vary. One thing I want to touch on, if you look at the 2000, you can see 8.2%. This is the primary reason a lot of people who bought their policies in 80s and 90s have ended up paying a lot more because the dividend scaling has gone down. But right now with the interest rate the way it is, we do expect the dividend to move up. So it's important to see the history of the company that you are investing with. Since I showed Mass Mutual, I'm going to show you that Mass Mutual has over 119-year history of paying dividend every single year. And these are all the numbers of the dividends they've paid in thousands. I want to quickly cover why a term policy, why you should have versus the one provided by company. So term policy has several benefits versus what you can buy from your company. One of them is the cost. It does get a little bit less cheaper to have an outside versus your own company after 5 years. There are some riders available with the one you buy from an independent agent versus what you buy from your company. If you change jobs, your coverage stays when you are with an independent company. You also have some options to convert it into whole policy. And there are several riders that you can purchase with an independent term policy. And the last most important is you have access. If you buy it through a financial advisor who is qualified for investments and other things, now you have free access to the financial advisor as well. That brings me to the end of my my presentation. I'm just gonna quickly say there are about 11 video links I have on YouTube, which are all compliance approved, which you can watch. Darshan Bhai can give you the details on those, or I can send you the links if you email me. We have a webinar coming up for doctors and pharmacists and dentists. I'm doing it jointly with another financial advisor who's a specialist in medical professionals. I also do networking open events, which are on Zoom. Also, I'm always willing to meet personally. And we also, before the COVID, me and my wife did musical financial seminars where we did financial seminars. We would end with a musical program, and then I would do an open mic session. I'm just waiting for the COVID to get over, and I'll be able to do those again. I've done about 13 of those seminars, and I really enjoy doing those. Next, the topics not covered. There's several topics I could not cover today, and I just gave an example: dollar cost averaging, estate planning. I wanted to share so much information, but with so little time. So again, I just want to thank everyone who's listening to me, and namaste.
Thank you, Dhilan Bhai. I would like our panelists, if they have any questions or if they'd like to share their experiences, please.
Especially for hoteliers, what I would like to mention is that you have built up assets, you've been working hard from one property, now you have 5 or 6 properties, and everything is under your name and your wife's name is jointly held. When you pass away, when that goes into the estate, meaning a judge has to decide that the kids who are successors to your assets are getting this property, they are taxed at 50%. That can be avoided. Currently, between husband and wife, you can transfer your equity portion of your property to the extent of $22.4 million. Equity portion. So you can transfer that property at a lower value by creating a trust for your child, transfer the assets to the child's trust, and when the property appreciates, when it gets income, when it gets sold, all the money stays in the trust, which is tax-free at that point. If I'm not mistaken, correct me, Dhilan Bhai, if I'm wrong. From that standpoint, that can be done. The other thing that you could do, if you want to transfer more than $22.4 million, you can sell a portion of your property to your children, create a note at an interest rate, and they can pay you back that loan and own that property as if you are financing that property. So any future appreciations, any future distributions from profits, everything goes to the children, and that's when they start filing the taxes for the trust. Any thoughts, Dhilan Bhai? Correct me.
No, I think you're on the right track with that.
Thank you, Dhilan Bhai. Pankaj Uncle or Bhaskar Uncle, do you have any questions or any experience that you would like to share? Sorry, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute your connection.
Okay. No, thank you, Dhilan Bhai. This one was really helpful. One of the points that I wanted to make is those of you who are working for the corporations, in your 401, you may have opportunities not only a 19.5 thousand plus catch-up contribution, but you can go up to probably around 63,000. Some of the 401k can allow after tax contribution as well. So if you wanted to maximize your 401, you have an opportunity to do that.
Yes, so the answer is yes, you do have opportunity, but if you do this, you would have to make it open to all your employees if you have a business. And if you're working with a company, then you can only do up to that level that you said. But if you're over 55, then you can do some additional.
Yeah, so
Again,
some of the corporation do actually provide in their 401. So check with your 401 what are the leverage you can able to take it, and if they do provide it, try to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Nancy Ben?
The other comment that I wanted to make is if you change jobs from company A to company B, if you have a 401 in company A, cash it out and put it in a Roth IRA or IRA and start a new 401k with the new company. That way your restrictions and paying of penalty and taxes is reduced to a greater extent and the growth will be higher and you will be independent of managing that amount on your own rather than the company managing your funds that you collected from the previous company and charging you management fees for it.
Yeah, so there are two things there. One is so converting 401k to IRA or converting to Roth IRA. They both have their advantages and they're both good options to consider. Roth IRA, only thing is if you have the ability to pay taxes because it becomes taxable event. So if you have ability to pay taxes, that's a very good option because taking it from there, the growth is non-taxable. It's one of those tax favored blocks. So
One
yeah,
comment
good
I
point,
would like to make. One comment I would like to make on it is you can do that in the year when you know you are not going to pay taxes on your joint tax returns because you are hotel owners or because you have assets, you are collecting depreciation, you have carry forward losses. That is the right time to cash out your 401k or IRA and convert those into Roth because any taxes that you have to pay, you have carry forward losses already.
Yeah, and you can actually do it in a bucket year over year if you want to convert portion of the 401k to the Roth IRA. Only restriction is you cannot touch that money for 4 to 5 years. Is that correct, Dhilan?
Yes, you cannot withdraw anything for a few years. Also, sometimes it may be a good option to convert everything into a traditional IRA and from there move it to Roth IRA because it's much easier to move from an independent account to another independent account versus going back to your old company and trying to get the money transferred over. Also, some companies would require a full transfer or nothing. So some companies have that too. So always keep that in mind. So one of the good exercises to go into a traditional and then move from there into Roth.
Sure. Yep. Thank you.
Darshan, but I'd like to add some things, if you don't
Yes,
mind.
please.
Thank you, Dhilan Bhai, for your insight today on investments.
By the way,
classics.
Samaj of United States of America.
Thank you.
This session, and she was very pushy that we need to do something for the youth who are right now sitting at home, have savings, how to take advantage of those savings and get a higher return on their savings.
Yeah, you have to start out young, right? But Amara Samaj mein એવું છે કે a lot of time insurance is like at the bottom of the list, financial planning and insurance. I think in a lot of our Indian community, a lot of times we are losing people at a very younger age. So having life insurance, either way, term or whole life, is very important. That's the number one thing. And they should always have one. Don't make an excuse, we don't need it. Everybody needs it. In fact, I'll give you my example. In 1995, when I had my car wreck, I didn't feel like I canceled my health insurance and thinking, and when I canceled it, I had the car wreck. I was paralyzed. The bill was $300,000. And lucky I had the waiver on my insurance policy. So having the riders for long-term care or disability insurance is very important to our insurance policy probably. But another thing that's important, ladies, that are losing their husbands and not having the financial backing of a life insurance policy is very crucial. We've seen many cases in our samaj where women are left in a financial burden because they never had any kind of financial planning, such as insurance too. Also, small business owners. We don't have a retirement plan. Like Raman uncle said, there's many advantages, and what Dhilan Bhai went over. I think our Samaj needs to realize, we really need to look into the financial planning aspects as small business owners. Again, I bring the buy-sell agreement, which Dhilan Bhai, you also are very familiar with. કે આપણા સમાજમાં ઘણી વખત શું થાય કે husband off થઈ જાય ને the women don't know the actual value of the assets of all the businesses that are in partnership. And ઘણી વખત value 5 million ની હોય ને husband જતા રહે ત્યારે partner લોકો 2 million બતાવે. But if there's a buy-sell agreement in place, and you can help me with this, it's good to have on file, so when if the husband passes away or vice versa, the value is already stated, so there's no dispute between partners too. So a lot of that is important, and Dylan, maybe you can also expand on the buy-sell agreement.
Yeah, so buy-sell is very essential because first the family gets taken care of, and second there is no disruption to the business. So those are the two factors that kind of come into, and you mentioned life insurance. I'm seeing that a lot. When people, the younger people, do not want to have any whole life policies or any permanent policies, and term policy they want. And sometimes I have a tough time even talking about the term policy. There could be a couple of reasons. I think the younger people are more into, the mindset is more about renting things and not buying things. Second thing is also they may have seen their parents go through some bad experiences with whole life policies. And I have seen that very much in our community a lot, because what happened is in the 80s and 90s, the policies that were issued were very different from what they have now. Those policies used to be 95, 98 or 100-year policies. And they were told that they, based on the current dividend scale, you'll be done 10, 12, 15 years. But they were not told, they may not have been told that the guarantee, it's not guaranteed. So what happened is when the dividend scale went down, they had to keep paying for longer periods. The newer policies have 3-4 different things than what they had. First is the mortality tables have gone favorable, which means that the premium has gone down because people are living longer. Second thing, they have firm policies now, which were not available before, like 20-year policy, 15-year policy, or 12-year policy. In a 12-year policy, you cannot pay premium in the 13th year, even if you want to pay premium. So those are the kind of policies that were not available 10, 20 years ago. And fourth thing I'll also mention quickly is that people, I have some clients who will be like, oh, COVID no koi discount marse, COVID chali rahu hai. I have to tell them that COVID ne lidhe, the premiums are going to go up because people are dying sooner and the average age is going to go down, which is going to impact the mortality tables. So
just a lot for our community to think and educate themselves and at least have some sort of financial backing. Because Kalutina going to guarantee nothing.
Yeah. So it's education and inside information is more important to make the decision. And Dhilan Bhai is really, really helpful, all the information that you provided.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions. One is one from one of the organizers. Can you explain a little bit more about the annuity?
So annuities are two big types. One is the structured annuity, which I talked about actually, and the guaranteed income annuity. I could not show any illustrations on guaranteed income, but the guaranteed income annuity works this way, that you get a certain pay all the way till you live. They have a lot of conditions and a lot of different levers to pull. So you really need to sit with an advisor and come up with what's the best fit for you. But these annuities guarantee you income for the rest of your life. The only disadvantage is as soon as you buy a guaranteed income annuity, it creates 2 values. This is very important to remember. I couldn't cover it today, but there are 2 values it creates. One is called the account value and one is called the cash or surrender value. And every time the market goes up or down, that cash value gets impacted either way. If it goes down, it gets impacted. Cash value is also impacted by expenses. So cash value and account value are 2 different things. To give you a quick example, if market goes up 6%, both of them go up 6. If market goes down 10%, cash value goes down 10 minus some expenses, so 11. and the account value might go up 4% if that's a guaranteed income, guaranteed return. At some point, when you switch it on and say, I want income, you're getting income based on your account value, not based on your cash value. So it's a very complex subject, and I can explain individually in detail as well, or cover another time.
That would be great. Thank you. And we have a comment from the viewer that's asking a question. I'll put it up on the studio. So, how to choose the finance advisor and what points we should look at before making a choice? Sorry, you're on mute, Dhilan bhai.
So few factors I would say is, one is referral, where people have had good experience with an advisor. You meet with them 1 or 2 times and figure out how much knowledge they have. You can also look at something called brokercheck.org, and you can see if there are any lot of disclosures against them. And you can also see what kind of licenses they have. So those are the 2-3 major factors I would say. Given with this COVID and all, what has happened is it's possible to have your financial advisor not living next to you. Fortunately, I have been able to, with COVID, I have been able to spread to 15 states. So now I work with Georgia, Michigan. I have clients who I've never seen before. This was unheard of before the COVID. So yeah, you need to be very comfortable with the person and don't have to have them geographically located right next to you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dhilan bhai. If no other questions, then we can do the closing. Pankaj uncle, please.
Yeah. Dhilan bhai, thank you very much. This one was really insightful and really helpful. Even actually, I stay connected with the financial, the stock market and all over the things. I learned a lot here today, and we need to do, few more like this, so we can actually get more insight and we can pick your brain. Thank you very much for your time and providing insight. Umar bhai, Nina ben, Bhaskar bhai, thank you very much for organizing and contributing to the webinar. And last but not least, Joy Academy, thank you very much for organizing this. And on top of that, thank you for joining this webinar. Hopefully this one is helpful to you. And if you have any questions, Dhilan bhai actually did provided his number, so you can directly contact with him. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.